Hello, 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 and welcome to the 7th episode of Mixed Media Reviews Season 3. My name is Kelsey, and today I'm going to be talking about a couple of book trilogies. This week's books are The Illuminae Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, and the Starbound Trilogy by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. I had previously read The Aurora Cycle by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, which I actually realized I did not do an episode about, so maybe I'll talk about that too. Anyway, I did really enjoy the trilogy. They're what I think the YA genre doesn't really have a lot of, which is like fun sci-fi stories. I guess if we're getting technical, these may still fall under fantasy, since sci-fi needs to have like a certain level of science behind it. But for argument's sake, let's just call them like sci-fi light, maybe. They're set in space. They kind of have like a space opera vibe to them, and there's some technology that's happening still. It may not be the level of technology we see like in Neil Stephenson's 70s, but that's okay. It doesn't all have to be 70s like quality. So let's just call this episode a few sci-fi light YA trilogies that I dig. Anyway, so yeah, after finishing the Aurora Cycle, I sought out more that was written by them and came across the Illuminae Files and the Starbound Trilogy, and I am so glad that I did. Since I, again, did not do an episode about it, let's just start off with the Aurora Cycle. Like I said, it's written by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. The first book, which is Aurora Rising, is set in 2380. The graduating cadets of Aurora Academy are being assigned their first missions. Star pupil Tyler Jones is ready to recruit the squad of his dreams, but his own boneheaded heroism sees him stuck with the dredges nobody else in the academy would touch. A cocky diplomat with a black belt in sarcasm, a sociopath scientist with a fondness for shooting her bunkmates, a sarcastic tech whiz with the galaxy's biggest chip on his shoulder, an alien warrior with anger management issues, a tomboy pilot who's totally not into him, in case you were wondering, and TIE Squad isn't even his biggest problem. That'd be Aurora G. Lynn O'Malley, the girl he's just rescued from interdimensional space. No big deal. Trapped in cryosleep for 2 centuries, Ori's a girl out of time and out of her depth, but she could be the catalyst that starts a war millions of years in the making. And Tyler's squad of losers, disciplined cases, and misfits might just be the last hope of the entire galaxy. I listened to these books like I listened to a lot of books through Libby, and this one had a full cast. I thought everyone was really great at their character, and it made the books just that much more fun. If you're looking for some YA that has a bit more space rather than magic, but also there's maybe kind of a little bit of what seems like magic, then these books are definitely for you. There were certainly some times, mostly towards the end, where one of the couples, which I won't say which because, spoilers and stuff, but they annoyed me a bit, or a lot. But overall, I still really liked the story, the pacing, and the adventure. From there, I found the Illuminae Files, which is also written by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. The summary is as follows. This morning, Katie thought breaking up with Ezra was the hardest thing she'd have to do. This afternoon, her planet was invaded. The year is 2575, and 2 rival megacorporations are at war over a planet that's little more than a speck at the edge of the universe. Now with enemy fire raining down on them, Katie and Ezra, who are barely even talking to each other, are forced to evacuate with a hostile warship in hot pursuit. But the problems are just getting started. A plague has broken out and is mutating with terrifying results. The fleet's AI may actually be their enemy, and nobody in charge will say what's really going on. As Katie hacks into a web of data to find the truth, it's clear the only person who can help her is the ex-boyfriend she swore she'd never speak to again. Told through a fascinating dossier of hacked documents, including emails, maps, files, IMs, medical reports, interviews, and more, Illuminae is the first book in a heart-stopping trilogy about lives interrupted, the price of truth, and the courage of everyday heroes. There is so much more that happens in these books, too. This is really just a starting point for the summary, as, each book gets progressively more intense and some more characters begin to pop up. But yeah, these books are really told through snippets of, like I said previously in the summary, emails and IMs, through narrated video footage and interviews. It was just a really interesting way to tell this story, kind of getting snippets here and there through the AI's thoughts, I guess you could maybe say, through Katie's thoughts, through her recordings, through people going through and telling you what was happening on security footage. I don't know. It was all pretty funny, and it worked really well together. This audiobook also has, or audiobooks, I should say, have a full cast and a lot of the same narrators actually as the Aurora Cycle books, which to me made the books feel more like they were part of the same world, even though I don't think they technically are. Like this was just kind of like a jump into the future or maybe an alternate universe. Either way, I really liked all the voice actors, and I think they all do a really great job creating this story. While listening to Illuminae, I had to wait between books, and so I decided to dive into another one of Amy Kaufman's books, and that was the Starbound trilogy. I think it's just called Starbound, a Starbound novel. Anyway, yeah, they're written by Amy Kaufman as well, and also with Megan Spooner. The first book is These Broken Stars, and it has the following summary. It's a night like any other on board the Icarus. Then catastrophe strikes. The massive luxury space liner is yanked out of hyperspace and plummets into the nearest planet. Lilac LaRue and Tarver Marinson survive, and they seem to be alone. Lilac is the daughter of the richest man in the universe. Tarver comes from nothing, a young war hero who learned long ago that girls like Lilac are more trouble than they're worth. But with only each other to rely on, Lilac and Tarver must work together, making a torturous journey across the eerie, deserted terrain to seek help. Then, against all odds, Lilac and Tarver find a strange blessing in the tragedy that has thrown them into each other's arms. Without the hope of a future together in their own world, they begin to wonder, would they be better off staying here forever? Everything changes when they uncover the truth behind the chilling whispers that haunt their every step. Lilac and Tarver may find a way off this planet, but they won't be the same people who landed on it. The Starbound Trilogy, 3 worlds, 3 love stories, 1 enemy. These books have a super unique premise. Each book tells a tale of a different, couple, 2 different people, but they're all connected in different ways. I will admit I have not listened to the third one yet. I realized it as I was writing this up. For some reason, Libby has the first and third book, but not the second on that's available to listen to. So I ended up listening to the second one on Amazon, and when I finished that, the first Lockwood & Co. book became available, and I just completely forgot about the third one because I went full throttle into all 5 of those books. So I have just placed it on my TBR so I can get to the third book, but I'm currently listening to 2 others. I have a hectic life. But yeah, so it's back on there, and so far the first 2 books are written with 2 separate couples or whatever, there's a guy and a girl, there's 2 different point of views that they're written from, dual perspective books. And then the second book, the one girl happens to know the guy from the first book, Tarver, so it has connections, and then they do end up popping up in the story later, so I'm not quite sure how it's all going to come together in the third, but again, I assume it'll mostly focus on that new introduced couple, and then kind of bring in the other existing ones as needed to kind of wrap up the story. And I have really enjoyed the first 2 books so far, so I'm looking forward to finally finishing it. With all these books, I feel like the writing is pretty well done. I like the worlds that they build. I like the characters they create. There's plenty of action and plenty of suspense all throughout the stories, and it's the perfect amount of romance for me. Just a little bit of a hint, and more than a hint, but it's there's also an actual plot happening too, so I appreciate it. Also, Ty, Ezra, and Tarver were all narrated by the same guy, and I really love his acting style. While Kevin R. Free will probably always be my favorite for Murderbot alone, although he does do a great job for the 2 F.T. Lucan novels I listened to so far, I think this guy, Jonathan McLean, I think his name is, may be a close second in terms of voice actors that I love. So I definitely recommend listening to the audiobooks for all 3 of them. Everybody else in the cast also does a stellar job. Stellar, get it? Because, like, these are space novels. Anyway, I think if pushed to rank them by myself, since there's no one else here, I would put Illuminae Files above Aurora Cycle. Starbound may also be above the Aurora Cycle, but I'll have to see how it ends first. I like the larger cast of Aurora Cycle still, but I think the more simple cast of the other 2 series just kind of made for a slightly better flow to them. I also liked the format of both Illuminae and Starbound a bit more, since they were a bit different than like a typical novel would be. And again, that's not to say that, Aurora was bad or anything, but compared to the other 2, just perhaps a little less interesting. That still sounds mean. I still really liked Aurora Cycle, but I think I liked the other 2 a little bit more. And of course, I'm recommending all 3 of these if you're looking for a YA series that is sci-fi and fun and pretty easy to follow, which also just sounds like an insult, but I promise it's not. I really enjoy these books. I think they're great little sci-fi novels that aren't too heavy on the science part of it, and are just, I don't know, they're fun. And there you have it. Those are my thoughts on the Aurora Cycle, Illuminae Files, and Starbound by a combination of Amy Kaufman, Jay Kristoff, and Megan Spooner. Thank you so much for joining me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr at Mixed Media Reviews Podcast. Please leave me a comment to let me know if you agreed, or if you have any suggestions, or if you disagreed, or if you just want to say hi. You can find me anywhere you find your podcasts, probably. Please join me next week where I'm going to be reviewing a TV show. And this time it's going to be One Piece, the live action one, because I don't have time for the anime. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye!